Good morning. Welcome to a first thoughts kind of review for the Book of Elsewhere by Keanu Reeves and China Mieville. This book, which has not been on my to-read shelf for very long, I think just about a week, is on the internet occasionally described as an action-packed and speculative fiction novel, and elsewhere described as a mind-blowing epic of ancient powers. Yeah, I'd agree with both. I enjoyed it. But first, let's talk a little bit about the actual physical copy and why it's on my bookshelf. Because when I bought this book, my bookshelf was already stuffed with several hundred to-read books, and I wasn't actually looking for it. In Queensland and possibly, yes, in New South Wales, there is a chain bookshop called QBD. And it is a new book, it sells new books, and I was there looking for something specific when I came across this. QBD doesn't typically do sales table, but this particular one, Australia Festival Fair, one of those fairs in Southport, had a tiny little sale table out the front. And this is unusual enough for QBD that I stopped to look. And this was on it. Probably because the cover was a bit torn. So yes, I bought a hardcover, which I don't normally love, brand new, which I almost never do, by two authors that were not on my radar at all. And I will blame this gorgeous copy. I don't think the colour really reflects too well in the video, but you've got this bright aniline dye pink block printing that is absolutely spectacular, and cover art that I found really interesting. So it was the cover art that made me pick it up from the sale table. It was the two authors, Keanu Reeves and China Mieville, that made me look at it twice. But I've got to be honest with you, it was the price tag of $2 that made me buy it. $2 for a brand new hardcover book in new condition, aside from one tiny tear on the cover. And I think it was this one. I think that one is self-inflicted, actually. So, China Mieville. I recently read their book, The City and the City, and loved it. But at the point when I picked up this book, I had only ever read Perdido Street all those years ago, and I hated it. I didn't finish it. I let my little pet dinosaur here chew on it. I loathe the book so much I can't tell you. I should try it again. I might loathe it less. But China Mieville, I kept having them recommended to me, and I kept thinking I'll try again. Keanu Reeves, I mostly know, like the world. We all know him primarily as an actor who in a number of his roles has done fantastic stuff for science fiction and cyberpunk type movies. I did actually also know that he had done a comic. Now, I don't own the comics in question, but I know that he did these comics in the... Actually, really recently. It wasn't the early 20s, like I keep thinking. I think it's just a few years ago. And to the best of my knowledge, correct me if I'm wrong, there are 3 of such comics out. I've read one of the first 2. I didn't own it. I borrowed it off someone's shelf or possibly the library. And I liked it, and I was pretty impressed by it. Immortal Killing Machine gives you plenty of scope for those really beautiful visuals. And part of the attraction, I've got to say, of this book is in the front cover, you've got a short bio of Keanu Reeves, but the front piece is, I'm 99% certain, straight from the comic. And at the back, you've got a little bio on China Mieville, and again, a back piece that is 100% that gorgeous black and white comic book art that is just so spectacular. So this book has a cover. The book design overall is by Elizabeth Rendfleisch, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. The cover art specifically, I believe, is by Larry Rostand. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I got that right. And the interior illustration by Sister Hyde, who I'm pretty sure did the Berserker comics for Keanu Reeves. Berserker, by the way, is spelt all caps Brzrkr. I'll forgive someone like Keanu Reeves for that. So I had read the comic, but not very much. Never read anything else by Keanu Reeves, assuming that he's written anything else. China Mieville hadn't bonded with when I picked up this book. It sat on my shelf staring at me for about a year. The City convinced me that I wanted more by China Mieville, and I picked this up almost at random. And I really liked it. So this is allegedly set in a different universe to Berserker. And the writing is really interesting. It feels a little bit like a comic book narrative, but it's got a depth which I think is consistent with the other book by Mieville that I read. And there's lots of different elements that sort of fit together like a sort of modern literary Antiquarian device sort of thing, or like clockwork maybe. Maybe the clockwork doesn't always work perfectly, maybe it doesn't always mesh, but it's pretty damn good, and it's very elaborate. So that, combined with those really strong visuals that you get from the comic book style, make this a very enjoyable book to read. And it's interesting how something that is so obviously of literary merit and worth, Angry Bird, Berserker from International Berserker. It's interesting how something with such obvious literary merit is also very much has that comic book feeling. So again, we've got an immortal warrior, sometimes called B and sometimes called, what is it? Unute, Unit? I'm sure that a point is being made with that name, but I never got the point. Tell me if you know. And it starts with them. They are this immortal warrior. The first bit is they're on a helicopter. Is it a helicopter or is it a helicopter or a plane? And there's a small unit of crack soldiers that are on their way to do some mayhem. And one of those soldiers decides to take out B or Unute. It's a very much a hook beginning, and I was quite hooked. You've got a number of different characters. B is what he's known by as his team soldier mates who go out and create mayhem. They also know that they're all crack unit people, professionals, high quality, whatever, before they ever come anywhere close to this incredibly secret unit that has been built up around this immortal god of death, Berserker. Those in the unit with him call him B, but there's a whole support network around him through which we see a large portion of the story who call him Unute. There's Diane, who is there as a scientist to study him, but she's almost an observer, almost a confessor as well. It's through her eyes that we see most of the modern day part of this, because this book has a lot of modern day. There's a lot of timey-wimey stuff. You'll have a little bit of the modern day unit and what's happening to B or Unite, his best friend. Insofar as he has a friend in the unit is Kiva. I think Kiva is like a sergeant or gunnery sergeant. He's kind of in charge, but also a good friend. And then you've got Diane, and on that side there's a psychiatrist or counsellor that's been brought in to take care of the other people in the unit, who understandably get a bit upset every now and then when their friends get killed. Now, where are we? One of those people is Stonia. He gets his partner, who's also in the unit, killed as well, and goes to this counsellor for assistance. There's another Dr. Shaw, that's the name of that counsellor. And you've got another scientist called Caldwell who's been studying Unit for even longer. Now, the reason the government wants the unit around him is so they can basically send them on a killing mission whenever they need someone or something's dead. But they also want to find out how to make more of him. So there's a lot of research going on with his biology to see how to make a deathless warrior. And he isn't entirely deathless. He can be killed. But if he is killed, he forms this strange egg sac thing and regenerates within it, either where he died or elsewhere. And a lot of this backstory we learn through individual skits. So we get a little bit from now with Diane and the unit and all that, and Caldwell and all that sort of stuff. Then we'll skip back in time to a memory of Unit Sobeys. Then we'll skip off to yet another time and we'll hear the story of Unit under one of his many, many names over the thousands and thousands of years by someone else who knew him. Someone who was a lover or a comrade or encountered him randomly on a ship. I particularly like the ship sequence. It's a slow burner of a book, and it's got those short segments because it keeps jumping from place to place. I don't love short segments, and so for about 2/3 of this book, I was enjoying it. There was never any question of me not reading it, but I didn't burn to pick it up every time I wasn't reading it. I was interested, but by that way, about the halfway mark, while I was enjoying the journey, I couldn't really visualize any sort of destination. I couldn't see this book having an actual final event and ending, because what could it really be with someone who's lived for like 80,000 years or something? Where's that tension going to be? In the in the later part of the book, we start to see where that tension is or is going to be. Unit kind of believes that he is death because he causes death. And the berserker in the comic book name comes in from the fact that when he's fighting, he can just fight extremely well as a man and heal very fast. But every now and then, this berserk rage comes upon him. Blue lightning enters his body. It shines out his eyes, I think his mouth as well. And from that point on, he knows nothing of what he's doing. And the unit are warned that as soon as that happens, they need to clear the area because he will kill anything that's around him, including his own companions. And he'll regret it later, but he won't remember doing it. And that stands out because he remembers every second, everything that has happened over this entirety of his life. China Mieville does a fantastic job of building the horror of that length of life for a human and that depth of memory for a person. We aren't designed to remember every single thing that happens to us. We aren't designed to live that long. But Unit is. And aside from the periods of berserk and between when he his little deaths, between when he dies and regenerates, he remembers everything. So I think Mieville does a fantastic job of really building the body of something that could be used purely as a exciting or an admirable event. He makes it kind of horrific and almost repellent, which is how Unit himself feels about it. He's kind of repelled by himself and his long history. He's deeply ambivalent about why he continues to exist, and he thinks that he is death. Many other people have over the years. People have hunted him, people have tried to kill him, and most specifically the people who've tried to hunt and kill him are people who believe themselves to have come from life. Like himself, there was once an immortal who was life, and everything they touched was filled with life. So they could animate sticks to life. They could animate anything or bring people back to life who had suffered a death. And that ties into our ongoing story until we think that that is going to be what the crux of this story is. And we are being lied to. Much like Unit and other characters in this book are being lied to along the way as well, to make them believe things that aren't so are so. So by the last quarter, I was thoroughly invested, and I'd got that feeling of I have to keep reading and really wanted to see where it was going. And there's so many false trails along the way that by the time you reach the final crux of the book, it's actually quite fascinating and you're thoroughly engaged. And having read so much that was really interesting, you've got that body of experience and information behind you to make the ending of the book really good. I do thoroughly recommend this book. I think I'll end up rating it 4 out of 5. The cover is fantastic. I would never have picked it up without the cover. The writing style, I do like Mieville's writing style, and I do like the content and the characters, the way the plot develops. Don't love those short segments so much. So it's probably not my favourite book of all time, but I do really enjoy it. For example, they're not exactly chapters, but you have these beginnings with that bold highlight. Goes, Diana was familiar with all the intricate and complex rules regarding what she could and couldn't take out of the office. And that's our introduction to the next segment, which has Diana as a protagonist instead of whoever was there last. Miss Sally Clemens, I think. But this whole segment starts with the bold, continues over one page, and ends with this page. And that's a smaller segment than I enjoy to read. So if you also are not into those tiny little snippets here and there, this isn't going to be your ideal book in the whole world. They are great if you've only got a short lunch break to read on, but when you've got a whole evening of reading, a pleasant sitting down in the warm living room in the night, those segments get to me after a while. However, that's a small complaint about what is overall a really pretty fantastic concept. Very, very well done. It's also, the writing is beautiful. That is Mieville. Beautiful, occasionally ephemeral, and often deeply moving. I actually wrote down a couple of quotes from this book. One is from the early part of it, page 65, and someone is asking, it's one of the back stories where someone from antiquity is travelling with Unute, not knowing much about them. So the quote is, "What word is that?" I asked once. "No word," said he. "It is a pause, as if for breath." They're talking about a comma. But I really like that. "What word is that?" I asked once. "No word," said he. "It is a pause, as if for breath." And you have a lot of these phrases and moments of writing in here where the writing itself is beautiful enough that it almost pulls you out of the story to pay attention to what has been written and the inherent integral beauty of the actual piece of writing. So this is a very good book, and thank you for watching my review of it. Minuscule review. I know there's lots of other reviews out there for this book because it's a new book. Probably go watch some of them. They're probably better than mine. But in the meantime, read good books, and maybe even this one, because this one is definitely a good book. Bye.